Welcome to the Better Business Beat, your go-to source for insights, stories, and conversations that matter to our community. I'm your host, Michelle Mills, and each week we explore topics which impact the way we live, work, and do business here in East Texas. From smart consumer tips and local success stories to practical advice for navigating today's challenges, we are here to keep you informed, empowered, and connected. So, whether you're a consumer, business owner, or someone who loves supporting local organizations, this show is your front row seat to the people, trends, and ideas shaping our region. Our guest today is Pam Anderson, not the Pam Anderson from Baywatch, but one who's making just as big of a splash in the nonprofit world. Pam is the founder of Compacity Nonprofit Mentoring, bringing over 30 years of experience helping organizations grow from startup to thriving success. From guiding new nonprofits through incorporation to mentoring seasoned leaders and teaching nonprofit management at UT Tyler, Pam has dedicated her career to helping others turn passion into purpose and purpose into impact. Pam, welcome to the Better Business Beat.
Hi, thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so
I'm
much
glad
for
to be
joining
here.
us. Yay. So we've known each other for a while, even served on a board, I think, I don't remember how many years ago.
Oh, it's been a few.
For United Way, right? Was it for United Way Advisory Committee?
I believe so.
It's been a minute, but
Yeah.
it's good to see you again, all the way from Jacksonville, Texas.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background and how you started your organization, and then what does Compacity mean?
Okay. So I went to college thinking I wanted to be a counselor, and my first real job was at the crisis center. And I watched the counselors and I went, no, I'll take that home every night. So I decided that counseling was not the way to go. But it did introduce me to grant writing and grant reporting. So from there, most people don't last long in crisis centers, about 10 years. I kind of beat the average. I moved to another agency where I spent time learning how to do capacity building trainings with nonprofits, and I learned a lot. I was there 17 years. And in 2019, my son decided to play tennis, and they play tennis during the school day.
I love tennis.
So
Just
I
side note.
couldn't see him go play with my current job, so I decided to go out on my own and start my own company. And I became Compacity Nonprofit Mentoring, taking that 30 plus years and trying to just help other nonprofits and guide them through that process. Compacity, you asked what that meant.
Yes.
It is a mashup of compassion and capacity. And the reason is I felt like sometimes nonprofits were not being heard for what they were or were not saying. And I wanted to go back to my roots of active listening, which was ingrained at the Crisis Center. It's always about paying attention and truly leaning in and listening to the client. And I wanted to bring that back to the nonprofit world. And so I love doing that and working with the clients that way.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, if they are not heard, then people don't really get the mission. That's very, very important.
Yes.
So there are a lot of people who are passionate about starting a nonprofit, which is a good thing, but they don't really know how to go about it. So how can you guys help someone go from an idea to making it reality?
Well, we start with a conversation. I don't like to just fill out paperwork and put them, in the system for that. We always have a conversation about what is your dream and how can we make that happen, or do we need to step back and look at how we might do it differently? I have had clients that I visited with that was in the middle of a divorce and was going to use the property she owned as part of the nonprofit. And I said, "Do you have a divorce decree?" And she said, "No, why?" And I said, "There's no guarantees in this world." And I wouldn't open a nonprofit right now if I were you. Opening a nonprofit is almost a life crisis. So you need to have, one life crisis at a time might be better. She has not done well with that nonprofit. And so it's like, well, I tried to tell you. Others, I feel like, hey, I love your idea. Somebody wanted to do mentoring. And I'm like, have you talked to Mentoring Alliance first? And they did. And they came back and they go, yeah, I don't want to do that. It was going to be too much.
That's a really great point. That's a really good tip to tell people, because what I see a lot is there's a lot of crossover. Number one, but also talk to somebody who's done it, because I mean, you still, even though there may be somebody doing something similar to what you're doing, maybe you could find another niche. But that's a great tip to talk to somebody who's already in that space, and just knowing a lot of the nonprofits in the area, they're usually very, very helpful in telling you the pros and cons of what they're doing. So, yeah, I was just at the Mentoring Alliance. Were you there yesterday? They had their luncheon at Green Acres, and they were just an amazing organization too.
They are. They really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so once we have the conversation, we go into filling out actual forms. We file with the Secretary of State, make sure the name's available. Ran into that yesterday. I got a rejection. They didn't like the word veterans in this title, so we had to go back and revamp and refile. But it happens. We work around it best we can.
Is it because so if you don't mind, what was the issue with the word veterans? Was there something
They
already
said that you
similar?
couldn't have anything in your name that alluded to a government entity, and that veterans alluded to a government entity.
Oh,
And so we just changed it to say services instead of veterans at the end.
oh, that's really
So it was a quick
interesting.
fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once we do the state, we wait for the certificate to come back, which is, I used to tell everybody 5 to 10 business days, and occasionally I get it back. I can file, like I filed yesterday, I might get it today.
Wow, that's a lot faster than it used to be.
Yes,
And the
yes.
application for a nonprofit, if I recall, used to be a booger, and now, I mean, and then
It's
they
all done
shut it
online.
down. Yeah, well, they shut it. They condensed it, didn't they? It's been a minute since I've done something like that, but
Yeah.
it used to be much longer than it is now. So the good thing is it's easier to do it, but it's also a bad thing because anybody can do it, and some people shouldn't be doing it.
Yes, yes. And of course, we do charge for our services, but you're paying for someone who knows how to fill it out and check the correct boxes. And then once we get the certificate back, we file for an EIN, and then we go through the IRS exempt application process. Some people mistake one for the other. They think if they do the state, they're incorporated, they're a nonprofit, they're tax exempt. It's like, no, there's another step.
Yeah.
So we do the IRS piece, which right now is taking about 3 months to process at the IRS level.
Okay.
They had gotten it down to about 8 to 12 weeks, but we all know things happened earlier this year, and
Sure.
we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But it did extend the process. It's
Yeah.
taking about 3.5 months to get that IRS paperwork back.
Okay. All right. So as you're waiting for the IRS to get that, for you guys to get the paperwork from the IRS, do you do some work with the nonprofit? Is that a good, what would you recommend that the nonprofit does while they're waiting for that?
I try to have a meeting with their board, and we talk about, it's a quick, like hour and a half meeting, and we talk about the roles of the board and what they need to do and what they're responsible for. I've only had one board ever call me and say, we're not doing this. Once they found out what they were responsible for. But we do
wow.
that. We go through bylaws. I have a bylaws template that we go through and make it fit that agency, things like that. So any training they want, things like that is what we do in the meantime while we're waiting.
Good time to set up the foundation, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good before things go crazy because, like you said, it's it's kind of a crisis starting something like that. Well, and you're also in when you're starting a nonprofit, it's usually crisis management. So,
Yes.
you mentioned that it can feel like a major life change. So, what do you think are some of the main challenges that founders face when they're starting a nonprofit, and how might you help them through that process?
A lot of times they're facing, how do we pay for this? Who's providing the service? So we call that a working board, because a lot of time they're fronting the bills, they're
Yeah.
doing the actual services, and no one's getting paid, obviously. There's no paid staff at that point. So that's a brand new nonprofit trying to figure it out. And in the meantime, you want to look for sponsorships. You want to talk to people who might believe in the process. We use a book in one of our classes by Peter Brinkerhoff, and he mentions a return on mission rather than an return on investment, where donors are giving to pay for a service for someone else. And they believe in that nonprofit so much that they're willing to do that. So that's how you can fund things that are going on with a new nonprofit.
Yeah, I think the Mentoring Alliance does something like that as well. Like you can donate to and many other organizations, but um, a certain amount of money pays for one child to go to summer camp, and this.
Right.
So is that kind of what you're talking about?
Similarly, yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to fund. There's many ways to fund, but I think that you got to. So yeah, what are some of the things that you would talk about with the board in setting up the foundation, or to set up the nonprofit so that it can thrive?
We talk about their roles, obviously, and responsibilities so that
Right.
they're aware of that. We talk about, one of my first things is, when you get any money in, go get directors and officers liability insurance. That's a
Mhm.
big one that you need to have in place.
Yep. It's not
Um,
cheap.
It's not cheap. It will. It's kind of based on income, so it can be not too expensive, but I do highly encourage that be one of the first purchases they make outside of any service equipment they need. We talk about their roles and how they can build the nonprofit. Like, are there partners they could get? Can they work with this agency? Could they be under the umbrella of someone else while they're getting started? And the different ways to do that. The biggest misconception I have is I get a phone call and they say, I want to incorporate so I can get grants. And I have to tell them that's not how this works.
Yeah.
You know, automatically incorporating doesn't give you access to grants. They usually need about a year of service so they can show a financial background and a service background and that they're making an impact.
Right, you know, but people don't realize that people that are giving grants, they want to see that you actually a little bit of, they want to see that you've done a little bit of had a little bit of success because it's so easy to start a nonprofit now. They're just not going to give their money to anyone, so you have to kind of prove yourself a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly.
So once a nonprofit is established, what does it take to grow and become sustainable?
We generally start with trainings. Like we do grant writing, research, logic models, and then in-depth board training. The little intro while they're getting incorporated is real quick, but we have a all-day board training where we incorporate some team building. We have them work out some scenarios, like what would you do in this situation if the ED ran off with the money from the grant and went to Tahiti instead of doing the services? You know, the board is going to be liable for that money, but the board's going to be looking for that ED.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So we talk about those kind of scenarios, and then we practice what we call elevator speeches. We help them kind of write one out. I actually bring index cards, and I'm like, we're going to practice this. You're going to write your own, and we're going to practice while we're here. So that's about a 6-hour training, but it's a lot of fun. It's very interactive. My favorite part is we have them draw their role in the organization without words, and then we actually set up an art gallery. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh, I would love to see that art gallery.
Oh,
it's
cool. Fun. It's temporary. We just, and I tell them, if you don't take your pictures, I'm going to use them as blackmail later, but, it's okay. Just some fun stuff we try to incorporate into the trainings. We do grant writing training where we teach them the parts of a grant, where to find grants, the best places to research, and it's not Google. I get phone calls like that too. I was on Google and I saw this, and I said, and how much did they want for you to purchase that information?
Yes.
And they go, how did you know? And I said, because that's how they get your money. You want to invest in a grant database. It's way better use of your funding. There's reputable ones out there. There's the Foundation Directory Online. There's Instrumental. And then there's my favorite, which is Grant Station, which is done through TechSoup.org. It's affordable. They always have sales of different prices. It's normally $600. You can get anywhere from a little over $100 to $200, and it's on your desk. It's at your computer. You get your own subscription. You can bookmark funders. You can keep up with them. If you save a funder, they email you when there's a change on that funder. So it's really a good program. It's affordable for most of the nonprofits. It would be the second thing I would tell them to purchase.
Okay. So D&O insurance and subscribe to a grant
database.
Database.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
that's really good. Those are two really, really good tips. So as we were talking, I was just thinking about, we know the stats for businesses. We know that businesses can, most of them are not going to make it. They're not going to survive their first 5 years. Some of them don't survive their first 2 years. So do we have any stats like that for nonprofits? Do we know how many, apply and don't make it, or is that even available?
It is available. I don't have it on me, but just from my experience, I've only closed 2 or 3 out of over 100 clients.
Really?
So, and I think it has to do with having a consultant and having someone to talk to and guide you rather than trying to go out on your own. There are people out there who can do it on their own, but occasionally it's like just need to get some information and experience from other people.
That would be great information. I mean, so that's such a great plug for you and to just hiring, a consultant to help out, because if you have such a great success rate, why wouldn't you, hire a mentor? That, I mean, it's important always to have mentors in anything that you do. So yeah, if you're starting a nonprofit, definitely you need guidelines, because it's such an emotional thing too. I remember one time I was on a board, with the founder, and because they were so emotionally involved, they weren't they were so close to doing things that they had to do the right way, you know. And so I stepped off of that board because you have to get check all the boxes. Otherwise, you're putting your board members at risk. So yeah, that's definitely important. So having a mentor will help you avoid those road bumps or get over them a lot easier for sure. But yeah, I'm going to look up those numbers because I think that'll be really, really important for us moving down the road to help our nonprofit community to help them thrive too. So it'll be good for your business too. Okay, so um, grant. So back to grant writing. Um, Now, for a nonprofit, would you recommend having somebody on staff that does it, or are there organizations out there that help, that do a good job writing and having good success in getting grant money?
It's a little of both.
Okay.
My preference overall is to help train them, teach them to fish so they can fish for themselves,
Mm,
so to speak. So I'd rather do grant writing trainings and walk with them. We'll write grants. Compacity does do grant writing. It's not my first service. I don't want to be known as a grant writer.
right.
I'd rather be known as a mentor and train you and walk with you. We'll write the first one together. We'll do a couple of them and see how it goes. And then hopefully you can go and write them and just go, hey, can you proofread this?
Okay.
Rather than me having to go and put all the pieces together. They are learning how to do that themselves.
Okay. So just got a quick stat. Thank you, Haley. Roughly 12% of nonprofits dissolve within their first 5 years, according to the National Center for Charitable Statistics. That's actually pretty good,
Yeah.
because that's much better than business numbers. So that's very encouraging. Now, there are a lot fewer nonprofits than there are businesses in the world, but I mean, that's very, very encouraging. But
Yeah.
still important to have somebody as a mentor and help you guide you through this process because it's not easy. So absolutely. So okay, so kind of a balance between hiring a grant writer and having one on your staff. Yes, I think it's very good to know how to do it, and then you can decide whether or not you want to hire somebody out. Because then, how do you know if they're doing a good job too?
Exactly.
Right. So just like your marketing and all of that. You can have somebody do your marketing, but you need to know something about it to know whether they're doing whether like how to measure it. Like, are they doing a really good job, or are they just telling me they're doing a good job? So,
Exactly.
all right. So, strategic growth and maturity. At what point does a nonprofit move from startup mode to truly thriving? What would you say?
When they start, or they're able to get grants, they're getting more funding, they're getting more impact, they're getting more known in the community for what they can offer. I mean, when Path first started, a lot of people didn't know what Path was. And now everybody's like, oh, Path is the go to. And they've built themselves up to be that mature nonprofit. They have good leadership, they have good boards. The boards are working, they're not just sitting and showing up for meetings. And like, I call them resume builders. My name is on your website. Okay, great. What are you doing? How are you helping that nonprofit grow? So it takes a lot of people to make a nonprofit successful. And in the meantime, we want to do things like maybe repeat board training. The recommendation is annually have a board training because that refreshes your members who are staying on. It helps train the new ones that are coming on board,
Yeah.
things like that.
What do you think should be in that board training?
We should cover the basics.
Hmm.
What are they responsible for? Things like that. What kind of oversight do they have? Again, we talked about the executive director running off to Tahiti. Well, the board would be liable to the funder in a situation, and that's why you want that insurance to help cover those things like
Yep.
that. And then we want to move into risk management and talk about how to mitigate the risks that are involved in a nonprofit. And there's no definitive line for that. It depends on what the nonprofit does as to how much risk they involve. If you're just feeding the hungry under a bridge, there's not that much risk there. But if you're working with children, there's a lot of risk there because you've got a vulnerable population that you have to protect. So there's a lot more in-depth risk management you have to do for that. We Then the other thing is succession planning. If the ED gets very ill or something, who's going to cover things? Well,
Yeah.
who covers what within an organization? Who needs training to be able to do that? So we talk about succession planning once they reach that maturity level and preparing people to keep moving up throughout the organization.
kind of beginning with the end in mind
Yeah.
as well. Um, so those are great things to put in your annual training. And so every year, um, so are most nonprofits, would you say, does their board, um, do they help fund the nonprofit, or do they, or do they, um, are they more, I guess, working and engaged that way?
But once you reach the mature level, they actually want, and there are funders who ask this question: how many of your board are giving members?
Yeah.
Financially, I use 4 things in my board training, which is you need to be giving of your time, your talent, your treasure, and your ties, which are the different networks you belong to, different organizations that you're in. But every board member should make a significant financial gift, and that there's no set amount for that. It's just something that means something good to them.
I'm going to save that clip that you just said. So I'm going to send it all to the nonprofits.
All the nonprofits. All right.
Do you do board training? I mean, I think that would be super helpful. Like if somebody was, you have your organization's training and then have you come in and just do the whole training. I think that would be super.
What I do
really
is more the
helpful.
governance board training,
Okay.
and then you want to do what's called board orientation, which is the organization, telling about the organization itself.
Okay.
It would be hard for me to do that for every organization.
Sure, that makes sense.
As I'm not going to know their history and their background and all that.
Right. Yeah, I like to do a new board orientation. I like to do them one-on-one, just so we can like really get to know each other, and that way they can. Sometimes when people are in a group, they don't want to ask questions, and this allows them to do that, and allows me to get to know them a lot better too. But I love the governance part of it, and I'm probably going to pull you in to do our board meeting. In January.
Would love that.
Okay, yeah.
Part of what you said about mentoring, one-on-one, is I do encourage board members that if they're staying a second year or a third year, is take those new members under your wing and don't do it during the board meeting. Do it. Go to coffee. Go to lunch.
Love it.
Hey, did you understand what we did at the meeting? Did you have any questions? Do you have any questions about how we run our meeting and things like that?
Yeah.
So it's always good to do that.
Okay. Board terms: in favor, not in favor.
Very in favor.
Very in favor.
Very in
Same.
favor.
Yeah.
Yes. Not that anybody's doing anything wrong or that we don't appreciate you, but you need to be rotating the board members.
Yep. Well, I mean, you want fresh ideas, right?
Yes.
A lot of times when I know some boards that have had people for a long, long time, and without bringing in, new people, you just kind of stay in this bubble, and that's not good for your organization.
Yeah, I'm working with an organization right now that it was a mess. It's been cleaned up and it's doing great.
Good.
I'm glad I got to be a part of that. And they're starting to, they had big issues they dealt with over the past year, and now they're doing little things like actually following our bylaws, which
That's
means some people
important.
are going to be asked to rotate off.
Yep.
And they're upset, but they need to understand it's not about you and it's not personal. It's just we need to recruit fresh ideas and new board members.
Right. Bylaws, how often should they be changed or looked at? Or
They should be looked at least annually to make sure they still fit. And what some nonprofits don't understand is bylaws are not in stone. They can be amended.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it just depends on what's going on around you in your climate and your environment that may cause a change. I had a guy call one time and he says, our board met last week and I found this grant, but it needs board approval. And I went, okay, so do an email vote. And he goes, we can't. Our bylaws specifically state all votes have to be in person, face to face. And I went, okay, first of all, you need to amend that.
Yep.
And second of all, do you go to lunch? And he goes, what? I said, do you go to lunch? And he said, well, yes. And I said, so call an emergency meeting and y'all meet for lunch and have your vote. And he went, well, okay, that was a simple solution.
Easy solution. Yep. Exactly. Okay, so what would you say is the biggest mistakes nonprofit make?
Oh, not going back to the same funder if they're still eligible is one, and the other one is making sure you file your IRS 990.
Yes.
If you miss 3 years in a row, they will revoke your tax exemption, which means you aren't eligible for grants. You cannot apply for grants because you're no longer considered a 501c3 if that gets revoked. And there's 3 levels of that. The 990N, which used to be what they call a postcard, is done online now. I actually have an account. I can file those for you. When you move to the 990EZ or the full 990, you need an accountant nowadays because the online version requires a accountant code, and I am not an accountant. I don't pretend to be.
Yeah.
The other one is check the boxes and sign the thing, and you're done.
I can do that.
Yeah, I can do that. Some people just want me to do it because they don't want to get online and deal with it.
Sure.
So I do that for several nonprofits.
Yeah. I was thinking about, okay, audits. How often should they be done? And at what point, should you start having them
That's
done?
going to vary depending on what the nonprofit does and how big they are. There is a thing for an audit. Some funders ask for an audit, and you've just been around for 2 years, and you've not really had enough money to really even pay for an audit. So in
Yeah,
that
they're
case, you
pricey.
might ask for a CPA review, which is less expensive,
Mhm.
kind of does a similar thing, but they don't go
Yeah.
through your minutes and your bylaws and all of that poor accountants have to do now for
Yeah.
audits. I feel sorry for them. We just want to crunch numbers.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
But a CPA review still checks to make sure you're kind of doing things correctly in your
Awesome.
finances.
Okay.
And if you ask a funder, they may accept that review instead of an audit.
Okay.
Financially, you get to about 500,000 or more, you need to start having audits.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So, finally, for anybody who wants to learn about how to start a nonprofit or wants to reach out to you, how should they do that?
You can find me lots of ways. I'm on a website, compacity.pro, Facebook/compacity.pro. Oh, no dot, sorry, Compacity Pro. My email is pam@compacity.pro, and our phone number is 903-586-4882. If you call, please leave a message because I am often out doing trainings. So I will get back to you. It just may be
Yes.
a day or two before I can. So
Awesome.
email's actually the best way to get me.
Yeah. Same with me. Okay. One more thing.
Yes.
Biggest tip.
Biggest tip is just pay attention to what you're doing and keep up with your information. One of the hardest things I have done in the last few months is help clients track down their 501c3 letter. They lose it. I've got an entity that reached out to me and they didn't know they'd even been revoked. Stuff had never been passed down to the next group of board members. And so we ran into that issue. So we're trying to reapply for 501c3 status.
Oh my goodness.
And it's bad.
Reapplying is harder than having
Yes.
yeah.
Getting it reinstated is much harder.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, Pam, I just want to thank you for joining us today. It was really great conversation, and I love talking to you about nonprofits because BBB is a nonprofit. You can also find Pam on bbb.org, by the way. I'm Michelle Mills. Thank you for joining us on the Better Business Beat, and we will see you next week.